Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're walking through a vast empty desert, and you just stumble upon this ancient, heavy, like intricately carved key.
Oh, I like this.
Yeah, and you pick it up, and just looking at the impossible complexity of the grooves in the metal, you realize this key was designed to unlock literally every single door in the world.
Right. Every single one.
Everyone. But then you bring it back to civilization, and the dominant culture takes one look at it, snatches it out of your hand, and tells you definitively that it is only allowed to open one tiny specific closet.
It's such a striking image, and it really immediately gets to the core friction of the materials we're diving into today.
That is the goal. Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a genuinely fascinating, multi-layered stack of sources to explore for you today.
We really do.
We're looking at a transcript of an audio monologue. It's simply titled episode_2.wave, along with some thematic notes detailing the precise emotional delivery of a speech.
Yeah, and it's not just audio. We also have a highly detailed cinematic storyboard. Like, a director took this exact monologue and mapped out a visually devastating short film around it.
Which is wild to read through.
Yeah.
The topic driving all of this media is this really provocative, structurally brilliant argument about the rainbow flag.
Right, and the central thesis is exactly what your key analogy suggests.
Yeah.
The original speaker makes the case that society took this massive ancient symbol of universal human dignity and just intentionally shrank it down.
They boxed it in.
Exactly. They boxed it into a narrow political label, just dismissing it as, quote, the gay thing.
Right.
And they did this specifically to marginalize the people who are claiming its protection.
Now, I do want to make something very clear right at the top for you listening. Our goal today is to analyze the architectural framework of this argument.
Yeah, the mechanics of it.
Exactly. We are examining the visual metaphors, the psychological journey the text takes us on, and exactly how the speaker constructs this narrative.
Right, because it's a very specific rhetorical strategy.
It is, and we are here as impartial guides, exploring the mechanics of a deeply compelling piece of rhetoric. We are not here to endorse any specific political or cultural viewpoints.
And that framing is really important because it allows us to appreciate the sheer craftsmanship of the text.
Oh, completely.
I mean, think about how often you see complex human experiences, whether it's grief or survival or dignity, just boxed into tiny, easily dismissible labels.
Right, so people don't have to actually reckon with them.
Exactly. That human tendency to categorize in order to dismiss, that is the exact mechanism the speaker is dismantling here.
So let's get right into the text itself. The monologue opens by drawing this really sharp contrast between the ancient cosmic scale of the rainbow and the absurdity of society's modern reaction to it.
The speaker has this incredibly dry, biting wit right from the start.
Oh yeah, they don't hold back.
Not at all. They note that the rainbow was, quote, ancient before it was political and holy before it was branding.
I love that line.
Right. And they outright mock the modern cultural narrative, saying people act like gay people, somehow formed a committee to seduce the weather.
That phrase, seduce the weather, it's doing so much rhetorical work.
It really is. It highlights the speaker's premise that the sky was just, minding its own business.
Right. The natural world exists completely outside of our human political squabbles.
Exactly. By phrasing it that way, the speaker is pointing out the sheer arrogance of a society that thinks a massive meteorological phenomenon is secretly about, their local zoning laws.
And the text grounds this cosmic scale in the biblical origin of the rainbow.
Yeah.
And, they do not soften it for a modern audience.
No, they lean into the heavy stuff.
Yeah, the speaker emphasizes that in the original story, the rainbow didn't show up after a light drizzle.
Right.
It didn't appear after some cute little storm with a smiling cartoon giraffe on a boat.
The Sunday school version.
Exactly, the Sunday school version.
Yeah.
No, it appeared after global destruction. It appeared after bodies in the water.
Yeah, that visual is so stark.
The speaker calls it a covenant with teeth, which is just an incredible phrase. It's a boundary against killing that proves human life is not just disposable.
Which brings us perfectly to the visual translation in the storyboard.
Oh, right, the short film concept.
Yeah, so the director titles this opening sequence, Biting Wit and Cold Constraint.
Okay, set the scene for us.
Well, we see a lean man in his late 30s wearing a matte black button-down shirt, and he's standing alone in the center of a ruined Gothic cathedral.
Wow.
The floor is this dark, wet concrete, and the lighting is described as stark chiaroscuro.
Okay, let me pause you there, just because not everyone listening is a film student.
Fair enough.
When we say chiaroscuro, we're talking about that super high contrast style, right? Where intense, directed beams of light cut directly through pitch black shadows.
Yeah, exactly that. It creates a very severe, almost unforgiving look. The shadows basically carve sharp lines into his face.
So it's very cold.
Very cold, very institutional, and it perfectly mirrors the defensive, almost hostile psychology of what the text calls the machine.
The machine, right? That's the speaker's term for the dominant culture.
Exactly.
Wait, I want to push back on this narrative of the machine for a second, or at least how the speaker frames it.
Okay, go for it.
Because the typical cultural script says that the LGBTQ plus community adopted the rainbow to, like, create a brand new identity symbol.
Right, that's the mainstream assumption.
But the speaker is arguing the exact opposite. They are claiming that when these, quote, mislabeled children of the storm, another great phrase, when they adopted the rainbow, they weren't stealing it or rebranding it.
No, they were remembering it.
Right. They were saying, we are under the promise too. They were the only ones who actually remembered its original meaning, while the rest of society had somehow just forgotten it.
Which is a massive flip.
It's a total flip, but it makes you wonder, how does a whole culture just lose the meaning of a symbol that massive?
Well, that is the core psychological insight of the monologue.
Okay.
The machine didn't accidentally forget the meaning. It had to forget it. As a defense mechanism.
Wait, unpack that a bit. Why a defense mechanism?
Well, think about it. When the machine sees marginalized people making a universal demand for basic humanity, when they say, stop treating us as disposable, the machine can't process that without indicting itself.
Oh, I see.
Right. If the dominant culture acknowledges that this is a universal human rights issue, it has to admit it has been actively violating human rights.
Oh, wow. It's a deflection tactic.
Precisely.
Yeah.
To avoid that incredibly uncomfortable reality, the machine just immediately categorizes the demand.
It shrinks it down.
Exactly. It labels a cosmic covenant as a special interest or identity politics.
Wow.
The text says the machine takes a claim of basic survival and files it under a political agenda. That is how you shrink a universal symbol into a narrow label.
Because it's much easier to debate an agenda than it is to look at a human being and tell them their life doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's bureaucratic distance.
That is heavy. And if the machine is actively categorizing things to protect its own conscience, how does the speaker address the institutions that actually claim to own that covenant?
Oh, they don't let them off the hook at all.
No, not even a little. The transition into this critique is honestly brutal.
It is deeply, deeply critical. The speaker turns their attention to the people who sit under stained glass windows, sing hymns about mercy, and, teach the Sunday school stories about the rainbow to their kids.
The same kids with the smiling cartoon giraffes?
Right. But these are the exact same people who, according to the text, completely lose their minds when individuals begging for mercy carry those exact same colors down the street.
The rhetoric here is incredibly pointed.
Yeah.
The speaker calls this reaction fear-wearing church shoes.
Such a vivid phrase.
And they refer to it as illiteracy with a hymnal.
Yeah, that one stings.
It really reminds me of an analogy.
Oh, let's hear it.
Imagine an institution building this massive, beautiful fortress entirely out of bright orange life rafts.
Okay, I'm with you.
And they preach every single week about how incredible life rafts are, right? They revere them.
Naturally.
But the moment a group of drowning people swims up and tries to grab onto those exact same life rafts to survive, the people inside the fortress accuse the drowning people of being a threat to the architecture.
Wow, that perfectly captures the hypocrisy the speaker is highlighting.
Right.
Because the labeling machine essentially translates the act of survival into an act of aggression.
Yes.
The monologue points this out explicitly. A child says, "Do not throw me away," and the machine somehow processes that as they are attacking the family.
Which is just a staggering cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
How does the storyboard handle this shift visually? Because the environment in the cathedral was already pretty dark and ruined.
So the director titles this section High Contrast Friction.
Ah, friction.
Yeah, and the cold, gray, natural light of the cathedral is suddenly completely overridden. A fractured beam of light cuts through the dust, but it's this discordant, artificial red and blue light pouring in from the shattered, stained glass.
Oh, wait. Red and blue light.
Yeah.
That feels very specific. Like, it's almost like police sirens.
Yes.
It's the visual language of authority and enforcement crashing into a sacred space.
That is an incredibly perceptive read. It is the institution policing the concept of mercy.
Wow.
And under this artificial light, the notes say the protagonist's posture becomes really rigid. His expression shifts from that righteous anger we saw earlier into weary disgust.
Which, I mean, makes total sense. But it raises an obvious question.
Which is?
If the dominant culture is so threatened by this, and the machine is working overtime to label and police and suppress these people, why did the symbol have to get so loud?
That's a great question.
Because the speaker spends a lot of time defending the sheer public visibility of the rainbow. They list out all the places the colors show up, right? Crosswalks, porch lights, hospital pins, dance floors.
Everywhere.
So why not just hold on to the covenant privately to avoid the friction?
Well, the speaker addresses that directly by arguing that a private rainbow is just hidden grief.
Oh, a private rainbow is hidden grief. That's powerful.
Right. The text says, quote, "A whisper does not survive a machine built to erase you."
Man.
The speaker entirely flips the concept of a scandal, because society thinks the scandal is the visibility, right? The parade, the flag, the loud public existence.
That's usually the argument, yeah. Why do they have to shove it in our faces?
Exactly. But the text argues the true obscenity, the actual scandal, is a culture so centered on itself that it views a universal demand for dignity as divisive.
So the loudness isn't provocation just for the sake of provocation.
No, not at all.
It is a necessary replacement for the safety they were denied.
Yes. The text argues that mercy had to become visible, obnoxiously alive, and interrupt traffic, specifically because it had been actively withheld by the institutions that were supposed to provide it in the first place.
If that's the reason for the visibility, how does the speaker explain the actual function of the rainbow itself? Because they don't just use it as a shield, right?
Right.
They present it as a very specific model for human interaction.
They do. And this is where the argument shifts from a critique of society into a philosophical proposition about plurality.
Okay.
The speaker describes the rainbow as many colors held together without becoming one beige wall.
I really want to dig into that beige wall metaphor because the speaker is completely rejecting the traditional societal ideal of the melting pot.
Yeah, the idea that we all just blend together.
Exactly. The melting pot assumes that to achieve harmony, we all need to blend in, smooth out our edges, and become one cohesive, indistinct thing.
One beige wall.
Right. But the argument here is that true unity requires the exact opposite. It requires distinctness standing side by side.
And the text notes that the rainbow doesn't erase difference. It doesn't panic because blue isn't yellow.
Yes.
And it has this fantastic line. It does not ask purple to explain itself in front of a school board.
I laughed out loud at that line. It grounds a massive cosmic concept in such a mundane, bureaucratic reality.
It really does.
A school board is like the ultimate administrative beige wall. It's a body designed to enforce uniformity and approve curriculums.
Exactly.
So the speaker's pointing out the absurdity of demanding that a fundamental aspect of human nature justify its right to exist on a Tuesday night in a gymnasium.
It's absurd when you frame it like that. It highlights the sheer exhaustion of having to debate your own humanity.
So how does the storyboard handle this shift into plurality?
Well, the visual translation here, the director calls it the prismatic awakening, is a massive shift in atmosphere.
I can imagine.
The camera captures a slow 180-degree sweeping arc around the protagonist, and the dark, wet stone floor of the cathedral suddenly begins to glow.
With the rainbow.
Yes, but specifically with neon-like paths of light.
Right.
Violet, emerald, electric blue, warm yellow.
Oh, wow. But the notes make a crucial distinction about how these colors behave, right?
Yes, very crucial. The director specifies that the colors do not bleed together.
So they don't blend.
No, they don't merge into white light or some muddy brown. They remain distinctly themselves. They coexist, casting a diverse spectrum of light onto the protagonist's face and shifting his expression from weary disgust into quiet awe.
I am curious about that friction, though. Does coexistence without bleeding together mean there is no conflict? Like, how does a society obsessed with an approved color handle that kind of genuine plurality?
Well, the text argues that society hates the rainbow precisely because it exposes a lie.
A lie.
The machine wants you to believe there is a dress code of creation, basically, one acceptable way to exist. But the rainbow proves that life after destruction is inherently plural. As the speaker says, quote, "Mercy is not a monochrome event."
Mercy is not a monochrome event. That is beautiful.
If the world is going to begin again after the flood, it has to begin in color.
And that sets up the emotional climax of the piece perfectly.
It really does.
We've moved from the biting wit through the critique of the church shoe hypocrisy into the philosophical necessity of plurality. Now, the text and the visuals converge on this space of pure, joyous revelation.
We shift from the defensive posture of just surviving the storm to the triumphant reality of actually existing after it.
Yes.
The text points out that marginalized people didn't answer shame by hiding in the shadows. They answered it with the sky. They answered it with color.
The speaker describes it as the party after the storm.
I love that.
Right. The laugh after shame loses its teeth. It's a total reclamation of joy. And they deliver their final, overarching thesis right here. The rainbow was never about identity.
Which is the biggest paradigm shift of the whole piece.
Absolutely. It was never about identity. It was never about asking the dominant culture for permission to exist. The speaker calls it post-destruction dignity.
Yes. Post-destruction dignity is the phrase that really anchors the whole piece. It's the ultimate symbol of human rights.
So let's look at how the storyboard visualizes this climax.
The director titles this section The Triumphant Dawn.
Okay, paint the picture for us.
Well, all the dark storm shadows and those artificial red and blue lights, they are completely banished.
Gone.
Gone. The room is flooded with a radiant mist, and then a glorious golden hour sun bursts straight through the collapsed dome of the ruined cathedral.
The protagonist's physical state changes here too, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. He has his sleeves folded back now.
Which means?
The director notes this symbolizes a man who is ready to tear down lies and rebuild truth.
Wow.
He's wrapped in this warm, protective halo of light, and the camera tracks behind him as he physically walks out of the ruins of the cathedral, stepping out into a vast, endless horizon of rolling green hills under a golden sky.
Okay, let me ask you about that director's choice.
Yeah.
If the sleeves folded back represent rebuilding truth, why does he leave the cathedral? Why not stay and rebuild the institution?
That is the brilliance of the visual metaphor. The cathedral is a human construct. It is a building governed by the machine, subject to those artificial lights and church shoe hypocrisy.
Right, it's the beige wall.
Exactly. But the rolling hills and the open sky represent the cosmic scale of the covenant. You don't rebuild a universal truth inside a tiny, ruined closet.
Oh, yeah.
You step out into the open. Post-destruction dignity doesn't need a roof.
That perfectly mirrors the final lines of the monologue. The speaker commands the listener to, quote, walk out of the storm like the sky belongs to you too.
It's so empowering.
And they deliberately reject modern political phrasing right at the end. They strip away the buzzwords entirely. They say, not identity, not permission, human rights.
It's a masterclass in psychological reframing.
Truly.
The labeling machine tried to make people a category, but the people realized they were part of a covenant.
Right?
The machine tried to make them a political problem, and they realized they were the inheritors of a promise.
By stripping away those buzzwords, the speaker forces society to look at the raw humanity underneath the labels.
Because it is very easy to argue with a political platform on a cable news show.
Oh, people do it all day.
Exactly. But it is incredibly difficult to look at a human being standing in the light and argue against their post-destruction dignity.
It's nearly impossible.
And you can see how the architecture of the argument we've traced makes that conclusion inevitable.
Yeah, the way it builds.
The audio delivery, the text, and the visual storyboard systematically dismantle the machine's logic until all that is left is that blinding, triumphant sunlight.
Yeah.
It takes a symbol that society tried to shrink and forcefully restores it to its cosmic scale.
Which brings us entirely back to you, the listener.
Right.
We all navigate a world governed by this labeling machine. Every single day, massive, complex human realities are flattened into manageable talking points.
Just filed away.
Filed away. But when you see a deeply human experience or a universal symbol being shrunk down into a narrow box, understanding the mechanics of this text arms you to ask a very specific, critical question.
Who benefits from making this smaller?
Exactly. Who
Yeah.
benefits?
Because the machine never labels things accidentally. It categorizes them to manage them.
Right.
It shrinks them to prevent the friction of genuine plurality, because plurality is harder to control than uniformity.
The beige wall is easier to manage.
Always.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Yeah.
Think back to that analogy of the ancient key from the very beginning.
The one that opens every door.
Yes. If a massive cosmic phenomenon of light and water, something as elemental as a rainbow, can be temporarily confined by society into a narrow political weapon, what other universal human experiences are currently being boxed up by the labeling machine?
That's the real question. It requires us to look at our own cultural blind spots.
Exactly. Are things like the depths of grief or radical joy or the human need for silence or the desperate desire for community? Are these things being chopped up and handed out as political labels right now?
It's wild to think about.
And if so, what ancient universal rights are just waiting out there right now for someone awake enough to reclaim them? Because once you see how the machine shrinks the world, you realize how much of the sky actually belongs to you.